What's up everyone? I went back to West Virginia for some autumn photography and I wanted to create a part 2 for my previous tutorial. So I showed you the importance of blending shorter exposures with longer exposures. Now I'm going to show you some alternate methods of doing this. Most of us have went to shoot some long exposures and realized we didn't have the right filters to do the job, or maybe we forgot the ND filters altogether. Well, today's tutorial I'm going to explain a few things you could do to work around this. So let's jump over to Lightroom and get things started. Okay, so we're back at El Alcala Falls, and here's my base exposure that I'm going to be using and blending with another exposure. So you can see my highlights are a little blown out up here. I actually took a more underexposed picture just to kind of recover some of them, and then I took a longer exposure using f/22 ISO 40, and this gave me a nice 13-second exposure so I could really get that swirl in the foreground. Now the reason why we wouldn't keep this picture for like the whole overall image is because when you shoot at f/22 or even higher with certain lenses, you get a thing called diffraction. Now diffraction actually degrades the quality of your picture. So let me show you something right here. Let's compare these two images and we'll zoom in at 3:1. Now I downscale these images just to kind of speed up the processing when I create this video, but you could still see that the image on the right, which was shot at f/8, is pretty sharp, actually really sharp, versus the image that was shot at f/22. It softens up. Now it might not look like that much, but when you're going to sell your images at very high resolution or to stock agencies, this is definitely an issue that you're degrading the quality of that image. So there's a reason why you want to kind of shoot at f/8 or between f/8 and f/11, because that seems to be the sweet spot on most lenses. Now let me zoom back out and we could close this. The thing is, we want this water, so I'm going to show you how you could easily blend those two images together, and I'm also going to show you another option, which is stacking images. So I took some shorter exposures that are around 5 seconds instead of 13 seconds, and I took 6 shots, and I'm going to stack these 3 images together and effectively create a 30-second exposure. Now this is another option if, let's say, your ND filter isn't working too good because it's too bright out, or you forgot your ND filters. You might have to stack some images to kind of create that same effect. So we're going to show you that, and it's very easy to do. So those are my 2 alternate methods. Another tip I want to give you guys is wait until it gets a little closer to sunset. This was in like a little gorge, so around 4 o'clock, 2 hours before sunset, it was low enough that this would get really dark in this area, which allowed me to take long exposures without using any ND filters. So that's another little tip, or you could go early in the morning as well. So let's just jump over into Photoshop. So select all your images, go to Photo, Edit in, Open as layers in Photoshop. Okay, so we're over in Photoshop, and the images that I'm going to stack together, I want to keep them in a group, so I created this folder right here just to kind of keep everything separated and make my life a little easier. So I'm going to put them to the side for now and just minimize this. And let's work on these 3 images. Okay, so I have my underexposed shot, my properly exposed, and my long exposure. And I'm going to drag this underexposure beneath my proper exposure, and what I want to do is just paint in this area. So create a layer mask. We can zoom in here, grab your brush, and I'm going to put the hardness down to 0, increase my brush size, and I'm going to lower the opacity to 80%, and we want to create and I want to change this to black and just start painting back in this area. Actually, I might lower this down a little bit more to around 50%. Kind of want to blend it as smooth as possible. go down a little bit more as we start to hit certain areas. Okay, so that's pretty natural. I actually have a underexposed shot that's even darker than this one, but I just kind of want to show you just to give you an example of how you would recover highlights like that. So then once you get that out of the way and you like how it's blended, you can merge that down. And now we want to focus on the water. So if we do this, we can see the difference. Okay, so the next step we want to do is blend the water from the long exposure with this picture. And before I do that, I want to make sure that they're in alignment. So select both images and go to Edit, Auto Align Layers. Just keep it on auto and hit OK. Okay, so now that everything's in alignment, we could create another layer mask. Select your brush, make sure it's on black, and let's change the opacity and the size. So I'm going to increase the size of this brush to around 80 and lower the opacity to around 50%. Let's zoom in here and start brushing in the water. I'm also going to increase the opacity for this section right here. Now if you go too far with your brush and kind of hit some stuff and mess it up, just switch back to white and just fix that. I'm just re-hitting some spots. Alright, so there you have it. That was pretty easy to do. So now I'm going to show you the stacked images and how that would work. Basically, we could actually use the mask that we just created. All we have to do is turn off this layer, and you can see that's everything that's masked out. And we're going to turn on the layer for the images that we're going to stack. And you can see it already put the one single image right here. This is a 5-second exposure. But I'm going to show you what a 30-second exposure would look like if these were all stacked together. So I have 6 images, 5-second exposures each. And I'm going to select all of them and go to Convert to Smart Object. Okay, so now you have a smart object, and I'm going to make a copy because I want to show you a before and after. Now nothing's happened to this image yet. The magic happens when we select a stack mode. So we're going to go to Layer, Smart Objects, Stack Mode, and select Mean. This is going to average those images together and effectively create a 30-second long exposure. So if we zoom in here, we can see the changes that made place. As I hide this, this is a 5-second exposure, and this is 6 5-second exposures stacked together. And you can see it kind of made a longer swirl and basically gave us a 30-second exposure, or very similar to what it would look like if we had the filter to do this. Okay, so there you have it. That's option number 2. Stacking is great to increase the exposure artificially and kind of give a very similar effect as if you had that proper ND filter. Now I would do some further editing to this, obviously. I haven't done anything. I haven't touched colors and sharpening, nothing. I just kind of want to show you the 2 other methods you could use to blend your images together and create long exposures, especially if you don't have filters with you. So hopefully this will help you guys out and take your long exposure photography to the next level. Now if you're interested in learning how I would edit something like this, I advise you to check out the first tutorial that I made kind of on this topic, and I go a little more in depth of how I edit. So check that out. I will put the link in the description below, and I will talk to you guys soon. I'm going to Iceland, so I might not post anything for the next couple weeks, but when I get back, I'll hopefully have some really good time-lapse footage, and keeping my fingers crossed that I get some northern lights. So see you guys in a couple weeks. Bye.